Hello, everyone. We are here to present to you our first episode of Historical Chats. Ni hao, my name is Felicia,
Ooh, I'm Christine.
Ooh, konnichiwa, I'm Mona.
and today we'll be focusing on Japan's dominance in imperialism and how that differs from the failures of modernization with the Ottoman Empire and China.
Japan first got introduced to the Western world by Commodore Matthew C. Perry as he opened up the shores of Japan after being closed off for 2 centuries. This later led to the 1868 Meiji takeover, which was where two powerful forces of the Choshu and Satsuma combined so they could topple the shogunate and declared imperial restoration on the young Emperor Meiji, who was only 14 years old at the time. This takeover brought Japan into a period of peace and stability as they grew to adapt the influences of the Western world, leading to their strong military, which a popular slogan in Japan is their rich country, strong military, which is because of how dominant their military is. And the Meiji takeover also brought in samurais. The samurais were removed from the Meiji period because of how Japan was going under modernization.
Wow, that's so crazy. Because the same thing happened to the Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire. Muhammad II thought that there was a really needed change for a more modernized military, so he completely killed all the Janissaries and created a new elite military that were led by German instructors.
Yeah, so let's get into the 1904 Russo-Japanese War, where Russia and Japan both had claim on Manchuria. So Japan declared war on Russia the day of the Port Arthur attack, which was the attack of the Russian Far East Fleet by the Japanese Imperial Navy, which was to neutralize the Russians. And in January of 1905, Russia's general Anatoly Stetzel decided to forfeit the war because he could not handle the immense military power that Japan held, and he just felt so just humiliated about all the losses through all the battles that they had. And this was significant for Japan because it gave them a boost in their Japanese in their military power.
Oh, that's crazy. The Ottoman Empire cannot relate. They faced many defeats under Muhammad II's rule, such as the Battle of Navarino in Greece, where they were defeated by the British, French, and Russian fleets, as well as the multiple Russo-Turkish wars that happened. And this led to a great decline of their empire, and Muhammad II felt that there was a much need for new reforms. But they failed even despite the help from Muhammad Ali, who helped them during the Battle of Navarino. They lost despite the great help from Muhammad Ali, who had a modernized navy and military.
In relation to establishing a new influence in military and governing systems, China also did something similar in 1922. Sun Yat-sen, the Chinese nationalist leader of the time, formed an alliance with the Chinese Communist Party, in which they ironically established a democracy system in China known as the Three People's Principle: nationalism, democracy, and socialism, similar to America's governing system according to the rights of the people.
That's really similar to the Tanzimat reforms, which were basically a modernization of. There was also a change in government during the Tanzimat reforms in the Ottoman Empire. They changed from a theocratic government into a modern state. They went through a bunch of more modern reforms that were based off the Age of Enlightenment and European ideals, such as like better taxes less and like better military drafts, and they weren't forcing people to enroll. However, there was still a lot of problems, and they weren't able to really beat out the European influence, and it was still unequal for like the non-Muslims. They were treated as second class.
China also made an attempt of modernization, but through trade. When the Opium War ended on August 17, 1842, China wanted to make Hong Kong a crown colony. The Qing dynasty had no choice but to cede it to Britain. This, the Treaty of Nanking, meant that the Chinese were now committed to free trade, allowing the British to transact with any person they please. The ports of Guangzhou, Amao, Fuzhou, Shanghai, and Ningpo were also open to all traders. In addition to losing land and territory, China also lost millions of dollars during the Boxer Revolution of 1900. In 1900, a secret Chinese organization, the Society of the Righteous and Harmonious Fist, uprised against the idea of westernization of the Western and Japanese influence. An international force that included American troops subdued the uprising, officially ending the rebellion in 1901 and making China agree to pay more than $330 million in reparation. Going back to the Opium War, when Britain captured several Chinese war junks, China also had to pay 60,000 euros in reparation for Pearl Harbor.
Wow, that's a lot of money. Just like how the Ottoman Empire lost lots of money towards the British and other Western European countries during the capitulations, which were basically these unequal treaties where the British gained territory and they had these privileges on Ottoman land, such as being free from taxes, which greatly lowered the economy of the Ottoman Empire. They weren't able to pay much of the reforms anymore, and they lost a lot of money in going into debt, leading to their decline.
Moving from government and military reforms, steps to modernization were also made through industrialization. For China, this specifically related to their trade and trade routes during the Opium War. The East Indian Company, existing of the English and British and other British merchants, began illegally smuggling opium in China. At first, China accepted opium as a form of trade due to the medicinal benefits, until millions of Chinese citizens became opium addicts and illegal opium began rising to the top of the trades. That the Chinese forced the British chief superintendent of trade in China, Charles Elliot, to hand over the opium stock at the Canton port in 1839.
Oh wow, the Ottoman Empire does also try to become part of the trade in with Europe. Muhammad Ali tries to include the Ottoman Empire into the European markets with the help of the this kind of failed because it kind of ruined the industrial reforms that he made, such as introducing cotton.
Japan had a lot of economic growth, and it wouldn't have been possible without the women of Japan. The women had a significant role within the workforce of Japan, such as working in the mine and textile industries. The Toyota Loom Works was also a big step for Japan's industrialization. The originator for the group of companies, and it's a diverse corporation. The central activities include automobile assembly and manufacturing of industrial vehicles, automobile components, and textile machinery. It was founded in the 1920s, which became one of Japan's largest integrated manufacturers of textile machinery, making weaving and spinner machines, and the largest domestic manufacturer of forklift trucks.
Wow, I wish the Ottomans could be that good. They lacked in the industrialization, and they didn't have, even though they were trying to modernize through establishing some telegraph lines, railroads, they were never able to fully industrialize the same as those European powers.
Moving on, we're going to talk about the society and culture of Westernization. This war broke out in 1864, and it was fought between the Empire of Japan and the Qing dynasty of China. They fought over control of Korea and Manchuria, which later led to Japan winning a decisive victory. This war happened because of the rapid modernization that happened because of the Meiji Restoration and how they became a leading power in East Asia. The Qing dynasty saw Japan as a threat to its own position in the region. The war was caused over the control of Korea, which they had both been interested in for a long time. In 1876, a treaty was signed by Japan with Korea that gave Korea certain privileges, including the right to station troops in the country. And this led to the annexation of Korea.
Losing to Japan, a smaller nation, in 1895, China was humiliated and wanted to further military advancements through westernization. But due to a fail and lack of Qing support, the decentralization and old nature of the government and also its narratives. Fuck, I'm so sorry. Losing to Japan, a smaller nation, in 1895, China was humiliated and wanted to further military advancements through modernization. But due to a lack of Qing support, the decentralization nature of the government, and its narrow focus, China failed westernization and military advancements.
Wow, this is just like the annexation of Korea, as Korean culture was stripped away by the Japanese because of how they wanted control over Korea. And a lot of this included a burning of 200,000 historical documents of Korean history, and 725,000 Korean workers were forced to work in Japan and the other colonies. And Japan then forced women to become sexual slaves who served in military brothels. And in 1910, Korea was annexed by Japan after many years of war. Political and intimidation machinations. The country was part of Japan until 1945, where they gained independence.
Wow, the Ottoman Empire faced another defeat just like Korea did to Japan. The Ottoman Empire failed to defeat foreign powers, and so that their culture was completely diminished, and one example was through the Turkification, as the Turkey took over their culture, and they ended up becoming part of Turkey.
Similarly to the Ottoman Empire's external influences, China was also greatly influenced by Christian teachings. Attempting to form religious groups with impoverished peasants of Guangxi province, citizens and peasants became mad and began a rebellion in which lasted 14 years, damaged 17 provinces, and an estimation of 20 million lives. In relation to external conflicts and influences, the open door policy was made in the 20th century. The open door policy was an international agreement initiated by the U.S. with China to protect equal privileges for all countries when trading with China, supporting and administering Chinese territories. These three countries, China, Japan, and the Ottoman Empire, shows the positive and negative impacts of westernization through European and American influences. We hope that you have enjoyed today's podcast and
Bye!
Bye! Woo! Thank you for watching this recap of Japan becoming a modern power while the rest of China and the Ottoman Empire failed to westernize. Thank you again!
Thank you. Bye!